don't stick at that same job. Find other jobs within the industry that they're perfect at and learn about that industry.
I don't want to be a product of my environment. I want my environment to be a product of me.
Prestige Living Podcast. So with that, who do you want to be?
Hello, welcome to Prestige Living, your channel that gives you the hottest of the hot entrepreneurs in Orange County on a platform where you can access their mind directly through your phone or computer. I'm your host, Jay O'Brien, here with your co-host, Jordan Wilson.
Yes, you are.
Today we have a guest who I had the pleasure of working with recently, and not only were my expectations exceeded, but I was also thoroughly impressed by the story behind the creation of the company and how they operate to this day. Where most business owners are applauded for taking their idea to fruition, this woman not only accomplished the goal at hand, but also blanketed across the state by franchising the operation. She runs an estate sale company called Grasons and is saving grace to anyone who has a house full of items that need to disappear in exchange for cash without the headache of any work whatsoever. Please welcome our featured guest and business owner, Simone Kelly. Simone, welcome to the show.
Hi, Jay. Thanks for having me.
So I want to get into like the estate sales thing and how that whole thing happened, but I got to say, recently I met your brother.
Yes, Victor.
And I couldn't really believe how streamlined the whole process was. I know that he had contacted me a few months ago, and we were talking about doing a sale in Huntington Beach, and he was saying, no, you don't need to worry about anything. And naturally you think, well, I have to kind of worry about some stuff. Like, I got to get the stuff out of the cabinets. I got to do this, I got to do that. And then I could not believe that it's pretty much like you give the keys over and you're like, just get rid of all this stuff. And it's very streamlined. So
it is.
Very impressed.
Thank you. Yeah, it's an interesting job.
Yeah, so let's get into that. Like, first off, when was Grasons formed?
2000. What year are we in?
We're in 2015 currently.
Sorry. Years seem to blend together for me. I think it'd be around 2011. The corporation was formed in 2008, and then I didn't open the Grasons until about 4 or 5 years after that.
What were you doing before Grasons?
I owned several RE/MAX franchises. I owned an escrow company, a transaction coordinating company, and a lending company to begin with.
Okay, so you were a real estate broker. You owned a couple RE/MAX franchises?
Well, we had a Huntington Harbor.
Okay.
And then we were just expanding out to the Main Street one before I sold.
Got it. Okay. So that's really interesting. Obviously, we own a couple RE/MAX franchises as well. So you were in the real estate game for some time, and then something happened where you just thought, I don't want to do this anymore. I'd rather start an estate sale company.
My hat's off to you for being a broker of agents, because it was probably one of the most trying, hardest jobs I've ever done, because you are dealing with a lot of people making a lot of money. It's forever changing. There's a lot of emotions and a lot of money on the line all the time. And the one thing I learned from there is you always back the people who work with you, your agents, no matter what. And if they're wrong, sometimes they're wrong, but there's always a solution. So you can't always say, well, you were wrong here, but let's do this. It doesn't really matter who's wrong. It's really, how do we fix it and move forward? And it was very difficult during that time. I was going through life changes myself, so it made it a lot difficult to deal with the everyday, and they call you from 9 a.m. to 9 a.m. every single day. And there was no real self-time, I guess, for yourself. You kind of forget who you are.
Yeah, I think that's actually really common in a lot of business practices. When you're the sole proprietor and you're the one operating the show, it's hard to unplug from it all because it's ever-changing and it's always moving and you feel responsible for it. I mean, and to an extent, you are directly responsible for it. But it is critical to prevent burnout from having those moments where you're off the grid, so to speak.
Well, and it's not black and white. In lending, the lending company I owned, WE Financial, was black and white. I mean, numbers don't lie. You either qualify or you don't. And people are happy to get into their home. And with real estate, it's very gray. To me, it was a very gray area. And the contracts kept getting longer and longer and longer.
Yeah. And in real estate, you're highly dependent upon so many different parties, and a lot of those parties which can be incompetent or negligent, and that can be very, very frustrating. So
very frustrating.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that, because I wasn't going to say that.
Yep, it's the truth. Yeah, my Instagram handle is anti-realtor, actually, because we kind of go against the grain on everything here. I think as you walked in, there was some punk rock music playing. I think probably Rancid or something like that. And it's
Fresh for a Monday.
Yeah, it's a little different here, but anyway, so you made the transition, and what kind of sparked getting into the business that you're in right now?
Actually, it was the realtors. We were renting a warehouse. It was empty. I was doing TC work. It was boring. I mean, we were averaging about 70 files a month, which is good money because you're getting paid $350 per file. But again, you're sitting at a desk and it's the same thing over and over again. And I was just the money wasn't that important. There was no, where do I grow from here in this business? Nowhere. So one of the realtors had called asking from my old office that we would sell this god-awful, ugly, white, half-moon couch with stains on it. And I'm like, sure, we'll just throw it in the warehouse. We'll put it on. And someone told me about Craigslist. I'd never heard of it. Threw it on Craigslist, and within 2 hours, the couch sold for $350. Someone came and picked it up. I thought, this is awesome. I'll just fill the warehouse with other people's stuff and sell it. And that's how I got started. And I kind of started as realtors only because that was my base. And then, of course, within a month, every consumer knew about it. So we went from 1,100 square feet to 1,400 to 18 to 2,600 square feet in like a year's time.
Wow.
And it just really grew. And then after we got to about the 1,800 square feet, it was probably 2 months into it. A realtor had asked if I would perform an estate sale, and I thought, well, sure. I had no clue what an estate sale was at that time. Being a broker, you would think someone would have told me, like, hey, I need an estate sale. We were selling millions and millions upon millions of properties. It didn't seem to make sense why no one had even asked for that when I was a broker. So I said sure, and then I went online and said, what is an estate sale, and how do I set up an estate sale, and how do I go about it? And we did that sale, and that sale grossed over, we had to do 2 weekends, and it grossed over $70,000.
And what percentage do you take, your company?
On a general, we'll take 30%.
Okay.
If it's a smaller sale, we'll go 60-40. If it's an even smaller sale, like a one day where we're really just doing a lot of favors for realtors, it's a 50-50.
Okay. Yeah, because there is a considerable amount of work that goes into it. I mean, I know you guys advertise pretty heavily for it, and your name is really popular in that space. But just from my exposure to it recently, I mean, it's all planned out from the get-go. I mean, there's like a single point of entry, a different point of exit. When Victor, your brother, was explaining it to me, he had everything dialed in. Like he's just been around the block. Like you can just tell that he's got a rhyme and a reason to absolutely everything he does. The way everything's tagged, the way things are clean, taken out of cabinets, the way the money is distributed. Like everything is just so streamlined that it was really impressive. So I can understand the 30%. I mean, because basically as a homeowner or for someone who'd be responsible for those sort of assets like an estate sale, no one wants to go through all that stuff. No one wants to like start picking out clothes out of a closet and taking things out of the kitchen cabinets. So to say, hey, I'm just going to hire this company, I don't need to directly pay them $1 in advance, and they're just going to take 30% of the proceeds, like I take that deal all day long.
Yeah, it's smart, and we're motivated to make a lot because we are only getting 30%. So every little item that's not broken or chipped or badly stained is sold because we have to make every dime we have.
Now, how are prices determined, like as far as the items that you're selling in the estate sales?
Well, we've done over 500 sales, so we pretty much know what everything's going to sell for. Mm-hmm. As a estate sale conglomerate of people that we come together as franchises, we actually price quite high compared to other estate sales. And that's because we use the philosophy of there has to be room to negotiate.
Sure.
So we do research on every item that we may not know, or let's say there's an artwork there we don't know. We have an art appraiser. We send the pictures out. They don't have to come in and see it. A lot of times people think art is worth so much, but without a certificate of authenticity, they don't want to pay us to go down to our art dealer down in Irvine and say, certify this, and they give you $300, and maybe it's only worth $500. Art
Right.
is not very popular right now. So pricing is done by research and by experience. The buyers want to negotiate. So a lot of times the estate sale companies say, you can't negotiate on the first day. That's it. The price is the price. We don't do that. We allow people to negotiate on the first day on some items because we know they're overpriced. We know that they can sell, and this is our, let's say we have it at 700, but it should sell for 5. We'll go to 7, and on the first day it'll sell for 6. We're still $100 over the actual price it's worth.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting was he was going through this recent home, and he could spot items and identify them very clearly, like this is worth that, this is worth this. Mm-hmm. He looked at the style of furniture, for example, and said like that was really in a year and a half ago. Today it's not. He talked about the artwork, and I mean, you could just see the knowledge he had was quite clear. It wasn't like we'll do the best we can, or we'll do this, we'll do that. It was pretty clear that he managed the expectations from the get go. This is going to be worth that. This is going to be worth this. This will probably go for $500. So we'll mark it up to 7, and explain the philosophy behind the whole thing, which made myself and my client feel comforted by his knowledge and expertise, because you're like, okay, well, this is the company that we're trusting to get rid of all this stuff, and they have a plan to not just blow it all out and get rid of it, but to really actually do both and get rid of the stuff and for the most money possible.
Right. That's the philosophy behind it. People have expectations of what their items are worth, and one of our jobs, probably the hardest, I think, as real estate, both the industries seem to work together, because your clients as a realtor want their house to be worth 1.1 even though the comps are 900,000.
Right.
Whereas our clients think that leather couch that has just a small couple cat scratches and it smells a little bit is worth 1,100 because they paid 5,000 for it. In actuality, it's worth maybe 300-400 because they're going to have to reupholster the entire thing if they're able to do that. But yeah, I mean, it's not the easiest.
So you went from the boring TC work to the really exciting world of garage sales.
Hey.
and so in the beginning when you did that, was like the jumping off point, was the volume there to do that? I mean, like if you, before in the real estate world and in the transaction coordinating, you had the volume. You had a bunch of different channels coming in for revenue. I would imagine in the beginning you probably have maybe one sale or a couple sales, or was it just a bunch all at once?
Off the hook from the very start.
Really? So tell me how that happened. Like, how did you start an estate sales company and then boom, it's like off the charts?
It goes back to who you know, not necessarily what you know. You really didn't have to be an expert in estate sales to be busy. It was such a need for the whole community to have, and nobody really knew. In Huntington Beach, you hardly saw maybe 1-2 a month of that, and you're like, oh, it's a garage sale and everything. But who I know and what I'm related to, from the time I was 17, I worked at a Les company, which was right along with William Lyon Company. And so from that point on, all I did was grow my relationships with individuals, keep a good reputation, be fair. Really, my reputation brought us so much business, and it still does. I mean, we just opened up in Contra Costa, and I aligned our lady out in Contra Costa with a couple of the brokers I knew from the Remax network, and she's now, after 1 week, has acquired 2 sales, and she has 4 appointments backed up already. So it's who you know. I mean, not everybody, you couldn't go out and go, well, you could because you're in real estate, but most people aren't. They couldn't go out and go, I'm just going to throw my stuff on the internet and everybody's going to call me to be an estate sale person for them. You really have to be aligned with different industries and have a good reputation to be successful. We're very successful at keeping our reputation where it's supposed to be.
So would you say the vast majority of your business is through referrals from realtors?
It's 50-50. It's from our internet, and it's from our realtors, and it's from, well, I would say from our internet leads, and then 50% of it, the other 50 would be 40% from realtors, 10% from the courts, the attorneys.
Oh, right, okay.
People that deal with elders or downsizing, assisted living, things like that.
And how many estate sales are you doing a month right now?
As the franchisees, or just as the Huntington Beach location?
Just as the Huntington Beach location.
Well, 4th of July is this week. Nobody's doing them. We don't compete with holidays. That's one thing I've always said. I respect the holidays no matter what holiday it is. people should be able to go out and enjoy it and not worry about, oh my God, I'm going to miss an estate sale, because they are very addicted to estate selling. So we just don't compete. We spend our time with our family. After 4th of July, we have 3 lined up for the next week, and then we have 2, and 1. So we'll probably be at about 8 or 9 for the month of July.
And that's just for the Huntington Beach office.
Yes.
So Victor was telling me something about he puts a clipboard outside of the garage or something, like a day or two prior to the estate sale. What's that for? He's talking about people signing in. Like, are people really camping out like it's Black Friday?
Oh, yes. People will stay. They'll come. We've had people come at 9 o'clock at night before the sale. The clipboard is like a sign-in sheet. And within that sign-in sheet, you'll have numbers. I mean, well, you'll have, they add their numbers in, because obviously you're not going to know how many people are going to show up. So it'll be a big waste of paper. But on top of it, it does tell them everything is sold as is. Once you sign your name here, you agree to the terms and the conditions of the house. You're liable for whatever you do. We're not liable, neither is the seller. But that is put out at 7 a.m. the day before, the day of the sale, never before. Because so people will camp out at 9 o'clock at night and sleep with their dogs in the car if there's something they've been looking for many, many years, and it's at this house, just to be first in line.
How will they know it's at the house?
Oh, it's listed. We get over 20,000 plus hits on our sales individually for each sale, and it's listed on estatesales.net, .com, .org, our site. And then we also send out email lists. Like, we have over, with all the franchises included, we probably have over 12,000 emails. The people that have come to our sale, that have signed up, regularly open them, because we use Constant Contact. Constant Contact will kick anybody out that doesn't open it 3 times. So if you send 3 separate emails to someone and they never open it, then they no longer get your emails. So the list is pretty valid on who we're sending to. These are people that are opening and consistently sharing it and moving to it. They see pretty much everything within that sale.
Okay, so for a home that has, so many items, whether it's kitchen appliances and like plates and silverware, and then clothing and electronics and furniture, all these things, are all of these items going online, or do they take pictures of it the night before and like kind of the consumer just sees it on the website, or how is it all listed?
It's usually listed a week before the sale. And usually when we sign the contract, I like to take broad pictures of the house. I'll move stuff off the tables. You won't see mail on there or anything. I'll take a broad picture of like the family room, and then I'll take close-up pictures of like the artwork you have on the walls, and then a picture of the actual signature. If they have perfume bottles, like antique perfume bottles, I'll line them all up, take a picture of them, then I'll put them all back where they were, so it doesn't look like we've been there. And really, then that's kind of like their teaser. Take a picture of the garage, all the tools spread out all over the place, not really organized, but not a mess. We won't take a picture of empty boxes with a couple items in it like everybody has in their garage. The pictures are there to kind of give people, what happens is people will look at the picture and then they'll zoom in. Oh, I see that in the corner, and they'll want to see more. Then we go back afterwards and we take more definite pictures of individuals. But if it's a whole collection, we'll generally take that collection together. Okay. That way you don't have 900 pictures you have to go through, because that could be a pain.
And are prices listed so people know how much it's going to go for in advance? No, so they won't know how much it is until they get there.
Exactly.
And everyone has to sign in, so even if someone comes in at like 3 p.m. during the sale or something, they still got to sign on that clipboard?
Well, we're closed at 2.
Okay, so you go
I'm just kidding.
9 to 2? What are the hours?
It's 9 to 2, 9 to 2, 8 to 2 on Saturdays. But that's ours. There's other franchises that do 7 to 2. Some will do, they try all different kinds of things. Like, I'll do a twilight, 4 to 7. You've seen that in real estate too. I'll do a twilight open house. That's worthless. I mean, really stick to what people are used to.
Okay, so when people sign up, are they reserving like priority so they can go in the house before someone else?
We call out their names by the list.
Okay, so they still got to stick around. It's not like they're going to get a phone call. It's like they got to sign up and then wait for their name to be called.
They can leave. We don't open till 9. We don't open early and we don't open late usually. Okay. But they can leave and come back. So they don't have to sit there the whole time. The only reason why people come at like 9 at night and stay, or 4 in the morning. We always have people coming up 4 or 5 in the morning, is because they want to sign in the sheet. After they sign in, and they're not just signing into like ours, they're going over to our Long Beach location and signing in there too, and then they're going over to the other one. So they're hitting everybody up, and then they come back to the one they want most.
I see.
You don't really want to move your stuff around on the pictures either, because we've had people where we have it in the bedroom. You'll see like this beautiful thing, right? And they'll go racing to the bedroom. Unfortunately, we've moved that to the living room, and someone else has grabbed it.
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of, so you keep everything so that people don't race around the house for obvious reasons. You don't want them falling, and you don't want them arguing, and you don't want them dissatisfied, like they feel like you've moved things to make them roam the house.
What's the worst thing that's ever happened at one of these sales?
Well, I would say it's the worst, but the best. We had one of our clients who I love dearly. Her and her husband have been married. I want to say they just celebrated like 60 or 70 years. And she was walking through the garage. She got lightheaded and she fell, and she actually had a heart attack. Wow. But one of our clients also is a doctor for UC Irvine, happened to be there. It was almost like divine intervention. I don't know if people believe in that. I do. But he was there, and he was talking to her, and we called the ambulance, and she was back at our sales 3 weeks later. And last week, Victor just told me at the sale on Lake Street in Huntington Beach, they finally both met. Like, they met, but they didn't really, you know, she's older, you know, the husband's older, so they don't know. My brother saw them talking, just randomly talking about things in the house and about the company, and Victor's like, well, you know him. He's the one that was here with your wife. And she just gave him the biggest hug, and it was just amazing. I mean, the things that happen at estate sales or during estate sales, not just with our clients, but with the buyers, the camaraderie between them is, it's pretty amazing. It was shocking because I was worried.
So there's a camaraderie, you said, with buyers. So it's not necessarily like that Walmart Black Friday, like, I'll kill you if you touch what I'm looking at sort of thing?
We don't conduct sales like that. There are a lot of estate sale companies that do. They like that frenzy, that fight. I hear so many stories of resellers coming in and just duking it out, and the estate sale company person yelling at people, get out, you know, blah, 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 all that. We don't conduct sales that way. We're very controlled. We have one person at the door, 2 in the garage, 2 inside. There's
like
no
security?
mad rush. No, a lot of people do hire a security guy or something like that. I don't find that necessary because people understand who we are now. They understand how they must act. We've had to ask people to leave in a much more mellow way than what I've seen other people ask. I've not had a problem with that mad rush, but I have heard horror stories of mad rushes, and it's all about who's running the sale, who controls the sale, how you approach them when you go out that front door. Because if you're like, hey, everybody run in, grab your stuff, just get out, we got to get people in and out, we're very mellow. It's, you know, listen, guys, we're going to work together.
So if Jay and I showed up at one of your estate sales, what would we have to do in order to be asked to leave? Like, what warrants you asking somebody to leave?
Just show. I'm just kidding.
Oh, wow.
I'm just kidding.
Your business is no good here.
It burns all over the place.
No, it would have to take one stealing if you were like kind of wandering around. We had one guy who went into the bathroom. Bathrooms aren't usually usable unless it's obviously like an elder or a child or something like that. But there was a gentleman that went in and shut the door, pulled open the bathroom back thing. What's that called in the back? The little tank thing.
Oh, yeah, the toilet tank, yeah. Yeah,
looking through that, like trying to find Oli, and I'm like, you know what, just my brother went in there, and he's like, just leave. Because he could hear him clanking around in there and everything.
I don't understand. Why is he opening that? What's in there?
He obviously believes that because it's been on a show before, that people store money and jewelry and all this stuff in the tanks of the toilets. Right, so he was like opening vents, and yeah, he's just a nutcase. So he was asked to leave. You know, if they were stealing, we don't really have a huge problem with that. But when we see it, they're never allowed back in, and they don't come.
Yeah.
They don't go to any of ours. In fact, we send out an email to all the franchises. This person looks like this, this, and this, and they had, you know, a trench coat at 90-degree weather, and it looked pretty heavy when they walked out.
So the franchising, that's like what I found to be the most interesting, is that with Remax, you purchase an existing franchise. You now have your own Remax or whatever, Subway, anything that it is, and essentially the infrastructure and the models and everything have been set up for you by someone else. And now this is the reverse, where you created a company from scratch, called it Grasons, and then you franchised it out, so now people are buying franchises from you, correct?
Right.
How long did you have the Huntington Beach location, assuming that was the first one?
Yes.
Before you got that idea to franchise it?
Well, I had it, let's say, 3 years before we opened, and forgive me because my math is way off on years. They just, like I said earlier, they kind of combine. Franchising it, I've always thought, and one of the reasons of buying like the Remax was to see how a franchisee wanted their franchisor to perform. How would I, as a franchisee, want them to perform? And Remax was an amazing place to actually, and you can say for being a franchise owner of them, because they were very well recognized. Their branding was incredible. Their reputation was good. Also, like you say, you come in and it's a little different than other real estate offices. They allow you to do that. It's not like, okay, you have to wear this, this, and this, and they were very open to new people coming in like ourselves, younger, and saying, yeah, we want, we don't necessarily want the 65-year-old broker. We want new people. We want new blood. We want you to bring our brand a little younger, so that it can relate to all the new people buying homes. And doing the franchise with this, I really reflected back on what I learned of what I expected from the Remax corporate office. So what I can do now is say, okay, well, I know that as a franchisee, I've experienced it, so I know what my franchisees are expecting. Sometimes I exceed those expectations. Sometimes I may not. You'd have to ask them. But it was a great sounding board. And I just was talking to a girlfriend of mine, and I thought, we were so busy. We were doing like anywhere from 12 to 14 sales, just our branch alone. And we were going from Yorba Linda to South County to Long Beach. It was just, we were burnt out. We were just really burning out. And we had a decision to make whether we would do divisions and just hire people to take care of those sales and we train them, or we do franchises. And in a cash-heavy business, credit cards, theft, everything else, divisions didn't seem to really make sense liability-wise, and there was no comfort in growing my own business like that. I thrive on watching other people build their own business. So it was an easy transition for me to say, okay, I'm talking to her about it. I'm saying, well, let's do divisions. No, I don't want to do divisions. Hey, I think I'm going to franchise. So I got online the next day and found a group, and they walked me through all the franchising, and about 6 months to the day, we were a franchise.
Wow. So how many branches are there now?
There is currently 11 listed. There is 12 sold, and that's only because he needs to get me his last documentation. So if you're listening,
Wow.
no, he's been really fast about it.
So, in real estate, as you're familiar, people talk about hot markets, cold markets, buyers, sellers, things that go up and things that come down. And I think that real estate professionals will often lean on that. Maybe it's a crutch or maybe it's not, but they'll say, the market's really good right now, or I'm not doing so well because the market's really bad, or whatever it is. Have you experienced those same sort of waves in estate sales? Because especially when 50% of the business is coming from a referral like a realtor?
Not necessarily, no. I mean, we have to shut off the spout when we want time. It's not where real estate, what I notice is it's, okay, summertime, man, we got to turn it on. We got to go, 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 go. A lot of realtors take December off, which I find ludicrous because some of our busiest, best agents at the Remax we had made their most money in December because everybody else decided to take the whole month off. You stop your marketing for 1 month, you're gone. Someone else in December has come and just flooded your whole farm, and now you're fighting back for that whole month you took off. Ours is constantly going no matter what. People, unfortunately, are always moving, always going to assisted living, and unfortunately, they're always passing on. You can't stop that spout from always spitting out. It's a continual business, and if you do it right, it can be a very successful business. But no, we don't. Unfortunately, with real estate, you guys have to rely on interest rates, on this and that. We rely on the constant turnover. and it never stops, you know.
What's your biggest struggle been to date?
Growth. It's growing so fast. We didn't get our approval from franchising until September 11th of last year, and the growth has been tremendous. And with that growth comes, you have to start relying on others, like your simple websites. You have to rely on people for that. Can you grow bigger than where you should be? Yes, because I've had to slow it down, because I don't want to have to make a major mistake on a decision that could affect all of us. Growth is probably the hardest thing that I've had to deal with, is how I grow it methodically and not get overexcited. We don't take every franchise. I've turned down 12 people already for franchises. We are looking for specific people who will be a good part of our team and that are honest. We do background checks. We do everything. I meet them several times before. It's really, honestly, if I had to say I hired all 12 of those on, I probably wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be in a nut house, because they would just bring so much trouble. You know, you have that one agent that you know and you want, and you meet them and you're like, oh, hell no, this person's going to rip up my office. There's no way I'm going to do that. It's the same thing with this particular industry. Everybody wants in it for an investment, or they're a buyer and they just want to buy out the houses. So I'll own an estate sale company and give them low money and go sell it myself. I mean, there's so many things you have to think about. Do you trust that person to carry your brand and work as a team? And that's probably the hardest part, is interviewing, making the decision to walk away from franchise money. That's probably the easiest thing for me to do. Like, well, I know you're going to be a headache, so that money absolutely means nothing to me, because it could infiltrate the entire business.
I love what you just said. I believe in that wholeheartedly, and I think that in your industry and in my industry, that's a rarity, because there is money in volume, and to a certain extent, if you just turn the other way and just let these things go on, you will inevitably earn more money, but arguably in the wrong ways. And we've founded our company on that sort of ethical behavior. So we have a similar filtering process when we bring on agents, because we're really strategic about the way we do things. Like, I don't care about the top producer. I don't care about the reputation. Usually with the reputation comes the ego. This office is primarily filled with new licensees, and so it's, again, the whole business model is flipped. But the point is, I know exactly what you're talking about. Someone like that could be a cancer to your business and do more harm than good. So I find the whole franchising thing really interesting. And now that you're expanding, do you think, you said growth is an issue because you're growing so rapidly? This time next year, how many branches would you anticipate having?
My goal is to have 20 by September 11th, our year up. My extended goal, which some people may say you have an extended goal only, would be 40. But I would figure 40 by the end of the year would be my set goal for that, and 20 by September 11th. Because by the time you get to like 20, it's kind of like with agent. I mean, honestly, my industry and your industry are mirrored upon each other. You're selling one large asset, I'm selling thousands and thousands of pieces.
All the assets inside that large
right,
asset.
Exactly. And we're selling cars and things, and sometimes we make more than what your commission will make on it, because we're selling cars and we're selling boats and we're selling jewelry and we're selling, shampoo. We're selling pretty much everything. But no, I think I don't know. I kind of lost my frame of thought because I was thinking shampoo and I don't have electricity and I couldn't blow dry my hair.
What's advice that you'd give to somebody who's maybe in their 20s right now and is not self-employed but has thought about it? They're working a W-2 job. It's Monday morning and they're just wondering if they should take that sort of risk in their life.
Wait. I mean, I know a lot of...
Wait on what?
Wait on running into that entrepreneurial stage of their life. Everything that I'm doing now is from my experiences of being behind a desk. So at 17, right out of high school, I went to Orange Coast College, and I just went there to find out where the parties were. And that kind of got boring because you really don't have a whole lot of money to go to the parties when you're not working, right? So I went and got a job at Les Combs. I was a receptionist there, and then learned how to, I mean, they were getting thousands of calls a day. I mean, they had 17 projects going on that were, all over San Diego and everywhere else. So it was dealing with that much volume at 17 years old and understanding how professionalism you have to be, getting over the fact that you do have to go on the loudspeaker across the entire companies, and getting over that anxiety of being out there. And then working up to loan processing, to their foreclosure department, because eventually it all became foreclosures. And then moving on to a union company to figure out how the unions worked. And then knowing that that's not definitely where I want to be. And then going on to a non-union company and office managing them, doing their payroll, setting up their job sites, things like that. All the experience from that point to when I opened my first lending company was the only reason why I'm here today. If a 20-year-old thinks that they're going to come out of college or they're going to come out of something and say, bam, I'm going to be the next Facebook guru. Well, your experience doesn't necessarily give you they're intelligent, but they're not mature enough, and they haven't had enough negative or positive things to happen to actually make them successful. It will be a much harder way of going if you just jump right out there at 20 years old. Well, I don't mean they sit at the same desk every day doing accounting work and flipping through things and going, okay, this for 10 years. They'll never learn that way. They have to jump jobs. Like, I had several jobs, but my jobs that I took were targeted to where I wanted to be today. So it's not necessarily, you have your receptionist. I never want a receptionist to sit at that desk more than a year, because if she does, she's worthless, because she's not motivated to grow beyond just answering the phone, and she's taking her life and saying, here's my budget and I'm never going to go over this budget. So everything that's cool out there that you can do outside your budget, she'll never have unless she gets married to somebody who will actually take her those places.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? I just like people that are motivated. So if they are 20 and they're thinking, I want to be an entrepreneur, don't stick at that same job. Find other jobs within the industry that they're perfect at and learn about that industry. Like I said, I went to a union job and was their office manager for a contractor. And I'll tell you, never again will I appreciate the union. They're terrible people. I went to a non-union job, and they picketed our office. They followed me to the bank with our funds. They followed me home, waited outside my house, and I was just the office manager. So to me, that kind of laziness and aggression to try to bully somebody out of what they're doing is not a way to run business. You really need to work with people in order to make it happen. And then unions only want to work with unions, and they try to coerce everybody over. Now, this may be very controversial for a lot of union people, and they'll probably start following me around again. But I don't
picketers outside of Remax Prestige next week.
Sorry.
That's cool. I welcome it.
Yeah, right.
So I have one last question. Do you have anything, Jordan?
How did the name Grasons come about?
My son, I have two sons. I have a 5-year-old and a 14-year-old. And when we went to develop the name, I had called my older son and said, come up with a name that incorporates both of your names. Because I really always do everything around family. All of our businesses are sold basically to families or husbands, wives, sons and mothers are working together. I like that kind of feel to it. So my son had said, like, in a matter of seconds, Grasons. And I was like, what? Where'd you come up with that made-up name? And he said, well, because his name is Grant, and my younger son's name is Jason. And he said, well, those are my first 3 letters of my first name, the last 3 letters of Jason's name, obviously. And I said, well, why are you making it plural? I only have one Jason. And he's like, that's because we're both your sons, Ma, duh. And I'm like, oh. And it just clicked. That was it. I never looked back.
Wow, that's pretty cool. I like that.
He's pretty awesome, actually.
Grasons.
Both of them.
And it is catchy. It sounds really prestigious. It does.
Yeah.
Okay, so the question I was going to ask is, what is a day in the life for you now being the franchise owner, and you're probably a little bit more hands-off, right? Because you've got so many people operating everything for you. Mm-hmm. So what do you do on a day-to-day basis? Are you working on growing the business? Are you managing the current business? Is there certain things like that are scheduled into your day?
I have just recently stopped performing the sales, going to the interviews, probably 2 weeks ago to a month ago.
Wow, okay.
When you hit that 10 franchises, you become responsible as the main person, as the corporate office. When you're just 5 or 6 and you can go out there, you can sell, you can do whatever you want. But when you hit that one pinnacle point where you become responsible for the entire corporation, the liability is humongous. So if I do something, God forbid, wrong at a sale, or someone gets injured at a sale, it doesn't just affect my particular branch, it actually affects the entire corporation, because I'm standing there. I'm part of it. Oh, well, Simone was there, so we can go after Simone and the corporation because she was there and allowed this to happen. So that's been one of the biggest problems too with growth, is that you actually get pulled away from what you were so used to doing, which is sales and laughing with the buyers and enjoying that time. And we've become very, very good friends with our buyers. We go to dinner with them. I mean, it's a great camaraderie, and I miss that a lot. But the other part, I guess, would be what I do every day is really focus on how I can better the technology for what we have. We are the number 1 in the nation for estate sales, and it's because of our technology and the people we hire. Technology you can't be crippled by it, but it has to be used, which means like your Facebook, your social media, we're heavy on that, your Twitter accounts, your blogs, how you SEO, who you hire to SEO, make sure they're not some big company that's just sucking money out of you and you're Google Plusing the heck out of it and spending money on pay-per-click, try to keep it organic. Those are the really difficult, and growing it, like putting together right now, we have the auction site ready to go. But we're refining it over and over and over again until it's ready to go. I don't want to put something out that's not. So that takes up a lot of my time. Putting our listings on our site, not RSS feeding, which, do you know what RSS feed is? Mm-hmm. Not RSS feeding that into our site from a different site that brings them to other estate sale companies. So basically making our site a one all Grasons. In order for you to have all of these attributes, you must be a part of our company. And so that's been really the hardest thing and the biggest struggle right now every day, because I'm relying on other people. I'm not a programmer. I'm definitely not that techie. I don't have a lot of time to Facebook about business. I usually do it for fun.
You know just enough to be dangerous.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, okay, so you clearly offer a ton to your franchisees and your clients, and it's really impressive that you said you're number 1 in the country. Is that what you said?
We're the number 1 in the nation, yeah.
Wow, that's crazy for the short amount of time that it's been, and especially the franchising, how it just started less than a year ago. That's quite the accomplishment. There's
no other company out there that has been doing what we do in a market we do. If you look up estate sale franchise, you'll see one, which is actually a senior helpers group that is trying to infiltrate into the estate sale company. So they never started as a true estate sale company. So when you have a brand that says, it'd be like Remax getting in the car sales. I mean, their homes, you wreck your car sales and your home sales because you're trying to infiltrate into something else.
Right.
This is a senior helper group that has done very successful in getting, Fortune 500, all this, and all of a sudden decided, well, we were senior helpers, but we also are a huge estate sale group. Well, no, because all of their franchises were senior helpers and very enjoying that senior helper group. And now telling them, okay, now you have to train to be an estate sale person. They didn't sign up for that. They didn't, and it's really hurt the brand a lot. There's one other one, very small, out in, it's way out in the East Coast somewhere. They went franchised at 2003, and I think they have 11, and 3 of them are owned by the actual owner. So no one else out there has actually done this, and I think people need it. We're not regulated, so they need somebody that's going to regulate it.
Yeah, absolutely, especially with a company that has the same philosophy as you guys. So if someone's listening to this and they want to hire you to either do an estate sale themselves or someone wants to open a franchise, how can they contact you? What's your website?
Oh, they can go to Grasons, GRASONS.com, or they can call our corporate office at 714-843-6500.
Awesome. Cool. Okay, so that's Grasons.com, GRASONS.com. And thank you so much, Simone, for being on the show. We really appreciate having you.
Thank you.
If you would like to be a representative of your podcast or know someone that would be a great guest, go to www
As a reminder to all of our listeners, RE/MAX Prestige services all of Orange County for tenants, buyers, and sellers looking for VIP service, zero pressure, and optimal results. Whether you're looking for your very first condo at $150,000 or selling your $5 million luxury home, we are your solution. This week's testimonial comes from Steve Keller, who writes, I must say, it was a great pleasure to have RE/MAX Prestige represent me as I purchased my first home. My agent was able to clearly explain the purchasing process and also answer all of the many questions that I had for him. He also exhibited a great deal of patience with me as I continued to change my mind throughout most of the process. He's a very genuine person, and he definitely had my best interest at heart. When I first decided to purchase a home, the other realtors that I had spoken with seemed to only be concerned with their commissions and their agendas. Luckily, my agent was recommended to me. He is very intelligent, hardworking, generous, etc. I cannot say enough good things about him. I will never need to find another realtor as long as he's around. Thanks, RE/MAX Prestige. So, there you have it, another example of our core philosophy representing our client's best interest at all times. Like us on Facebook by searching RE/MAX Prestige, and feel free to reach us online at prestigelivingpodcast.com.